Ria, I want to first say thank you for coming onto the Diary of a Muslim Entrepreneur podcast. It's such an honor to have you, being the first woman on the pod.
Woohoo!
And that in itself, I mean, so many women want to jump into entrepreneurship, and they just don't know a path, or they don't have a helping hand to hold them and guide them to help them achieve that target or goal, or maybe they don't have the support that they need. But my first question to you is, how are you really doing today?
I am doing fantastic. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I didn't know I was the first female on this podcast, so that makes me feel even more better. But thank you so much for being here, and I'm super excited to get started.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's actually dig into a little bit of your background, because initially you were in financial consulting, right? And even that in itself is a field where many women are not present. It's mainly a male-dominated industry. It has been, I think, for the past 20, 30, more years, actually, since every movie from the 70s onwards related to Wall Street, right?
Right.
But before, I mean, your background in financial investing, before you transition into wedding planning and stuff like that, what drew you to finance? I mean, like, and what led you to pivot into the wedding planning and events planning business in itself?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So you're right. Not many women in finance. I think the reason why I chose finance was because my family was heavily medicine, engineering oriented. My brothers are in engineering. My sisters-in-law. I come from a family of doctors. So they looked at me as the eldest daughter and eldest granddaughter in the family, that I would go and take one of the same routes that everyone else has already taken. But I was not really interested in medicine or law or engineering. So I thought, like, what can I do that'll be equivalent to this, but not necessarily anything in this field?
Just a little tiny tangent here.
Yeah.
When you were a child, like, what were the things that came to your mind that you wanted to do? Like, I mean, because, like, in my case, I wanted to be a race car driver.
Yeah.
That didn't become a reality, but I also did have a passion for business and other things, and that led me down an interesting path nevertheless. But for you, what was that? What did you want to become when you were like 10?
Wow, when I was like 10, I think I wanted to be an art teacher, believe it or not. I enjoyed art classes when I was 10 or in elementary school, and I enjoyed teaching or like leading. And I think that's also because I'm the eldest of four, and they always had to look up to me, and I enjoyed like explaining things to them. So being an art teacher, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there like I guess, what led you to pivot into the events and wedding planning industry? Because I don't think you answered that piece.
Yeah, absolutely. So I chose finance because it was very similar to what I felt my family would approve of. It's not medicine, law, or engineering, but it was very, very close to it. It's like literally in the business world, this is the medicine aspect, right? Being in finance, financial investments. But moving away from that, I think I was in the field for such a long time that it felt dull, draining. I was exhausted.
How long were you in the industry?
I was in the industry for 4 years.
Wow.
And I spent 80 hours plus working. And I just felt overwhelmed. You're not just working as a female, you're taking care of your home, you're taking care of family, you're also working, and it's
so
lot.
many layers, isn't it?
So many layers.
And it's so nuanced, especially for a woman, whereas a male wouldn't have necessarily all those responsibilities, right?
Right.
Right. So it's interesting to see and to note that. So was there like a defining moment or a personal experience that made you realize that, event planning was your true passion?
Honestly, I think I wanted to do something creative, and that just made me happy. I would paint all the time. I would do origami. I would create really fun things with my hands. I'm really good at building too, and I did that throughout high school, college, and when I was in corporate. And I think one day I just felt the need to do more than what I was doing from Monday to Friday. And so I kind of dabbled into planning only because one of my really good friends was getting married and she asked me to help her. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I come from a household where my mom was very much the host of our family. She threw parties, she cooked delicious food, and every weekend we had something going on. And growing up seeing that, I always loved it. She's my role model, and whatever she did just was really exciting. And when I grew up and this opportunity came about, I almost felt like, oh, I could do something different like my mom did. Maybe I should just like dabble into this, and I did. And when I did, I felt so good. I felt creative, like that creativity side came out, the fun came out. It was just exciting. So I thought maybe I should,
And just give it a shot.
give it a shot, dabble into it.
But usually when people start a business, right? And in your case, it's like, okay, it's something that I've done in the past. You're familiar with it to a degree.
Yeah.
I mean, transitioning and doing that for one group of people is one thing. Doing it for 200 or 500 people is substantially different, because now you're dealing with the preferences of not just one group, but maybe two groups of people, or three groups, or five groups, however many it is. I mean, did you notice that there were a lot of differences within the business if you started to scale up or scale down, or were the events more intimate, or were they a bit more complex? Like, walk me through those bits and pieces.
Yeah, absolutely. So honestly, I never really saw myself going into the event side at all. But because the opportunity just came on its own, and I was so excited to be there, I was more excited than I was with my 9 to 5, that like the opportunities naturally came about. And when it comes to like the sizes, I never really chose what type of events. It's just, I allowed the opportunity to just kind of like, give me an opportunity to get creative and excited about it. So in terms of sizing, I never really thought about it because I didn't actually expect to go into event space. But when the opportunity came about, I learned to execute in a way where any size would be okay.
So usually, there was another question that came to my mind, is that, did you have a mentor? Did you leverage somebody else's knowledge or information to help you build the business in itself? Because in many cases, like, whenever I want to build out a business, I want to try something new, I go talk to people in the space. I get an idea, similar to like what a consultant would do, right? They get all the experts and they say, okay, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. What did you do? How did you do it? And then from there, you make a decision for yourself, right? So maybe you can discuss that a little bit to a greater degree.
Absolutely. I think once I realized that, I was more myself in the event space and kind of slowly shifted away from corporate. I wouldn't say clientele, but I had a lot of really good friends who are now at this point becoming clients. Then I realized I need to have a better structure and experience in that space as well. When it comes to structure, my mom is in business, so I went to her for advice and questions like, what can I do here? How do I do X, Y, Z?
Is she in the same business?
She's actually in jewelry.
Okay.
So a completely different space. But growing up, seeing her with her business and how she tackled every situation at hand, I learned from that. And she is truly my role model because she took care of the home, she took care of her business, she took care of us. And that's who I wanted to be. So the business strategies came from my mom. When it comes to experience in the wedding space itself, I worked with multiple wedding planners in Atlanta just to get that experience and actually see if I wanted to be in this space. And that helped me give a really good answer to myself.
So was there any sort of like personally defining moment that made you realize that, I mean, obviously, I guess that was the event, right?
Yeah.
Basically, you seeing that, hey, a friend is asking you to, plan an event for them, and that sparked the creativity, and then from there it just kept on blossoming and blossoming and blossoming. How would you say your early upbringing or your early life experiences shaped the way you approach creativity in an organization and business today? Because I mean, you were in finance, so finance we tend to follow a very structured way of doing things, right? Reviewing P&Ls and stuff like that. That obviously helps your business today.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So many things from finance can be pulled in almost any business, and this one is especially because it has so many moving parts, right? So you're doing more like project accounting or cost accounting is what typically would be known as. But maybe you can speak to that a bit more. So how did those experiences shape the business, and how did those experiences also influence the business today?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, because when you are in investments and when you're investing in your wedding, it's literally the same thing. Like you're looking at the return of it, right? The overall vision that you're working towards within a year and a half or whatnot. So I have the overall understanding of how much of an investment we're going to make and where it's going to be allocated in order for my clients to see the end results and I guess the return on their investment. So yes, that's always been an aspect that I utilize every single time we do an event.
So this brings up another question.
Yeah.
I've asked many attorneys this question as well, and the reason I asked this question is your business is more client service oriented, meaning they
Yes.
don't get to see the end result until it actually has occurred. How do you communicate that value proposition to them? How do they, why would they go with you, let's say, not to say this is a bad thing, but you versus someone else, right? How do you communicate that value structure, that value proposition to them? So then that way they always, or to your knowledge, right, accept the proposal that you're basically giving them.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Portfolio. Just like in investments, you show your portfolio, you have your clientele, you have your references. Weddings, same exact thing. I don't have to market myself. My past clients speak for themselves. And a lot of times my past clients will convince my future clients to contract us. And that on its own has been fantastic. So I am truly grateful and blessed for that aspect.
Got it. So one of the questions that comes into my mind is that, did you face any sort of resistance from family, friends, peers or even internally? Were you conflicted at any point when you were transitioning from corporate America or finance to doing this kind of work?
Yeah. So interesting you say that, because there was a lot of support, but then there was the other side as well. You're going in from an office-based corporate world to the service industry. It's a huge jump. So I had family members and friends who said, maybe not the best. Are you sure? Think about it again. But then those who knew me on a very deep and intimate level understood how creative I was, how passionate I was about events and making my clients really happy. I'm a Virgo, so I'm a people pleaser, and I want to make sure everyone's happy and like they're enjoying whatever moment they're in. And I think anyone who knew that about me understood that this is the space that I should be in. So yes, we went through some challenges. But then the reward was the support I had. My mom was very supportive. My husband Amar is incredibly supportive. And I think that just helped me do what I was truly passionate about, instead of staying in a space where it looks great from the outside, but am I truly happy? And honestly, I'm living my life for myself, for my family, not for the comments people might have, right? So I was happy in the space. I enjoyed it. I naturally just gravitated towards it. And I just listened to my heart on that, and it worked out great.
So the question that I have here is, how do you filter out the comments from, let's say, people who have had no experience running a business versus those who actually have, right? Because it's something to think about. When people usually go into business, it's like, oh, everybody thinks it's a great idea, but have they actually run it, right? And I've noticed that whenever I got in the restaurant space or I got in any other sector, I had an idea of what I was going to go get exposed to because I've worked in those environments.
Right.
It's when other people haven't, that I'm partnering with, that I found that I have had a lot of trouble in some cases. In your case, it was family, friends, and they've all obviously run businesses, but did you ever have anybody who really brought you down? and you don't have to say their name, obviously, but like, are there moments where you recall where like, hey, you know what, I'm glad I didn't listen to this person. Right?
Wow, you're definitely making me go back in time a lot. I think that I didn't have one specific person who was like a Debbie Downer or anything of that nature. Maybe I heard comments from individuals who were either in business or might not be, have a different lifestyle, and had lots of opinions about what I did. But honestly, in life, I'm the type of person who values myself, understands what I want to do, what's best for me and my family, and I try to focus on that a lot more than the noise that comes. Yeah. And when you listen to the noise, you really won't be able to do anything in life because you're just holding yourself back because of someone else or other comments. So I am definitely one who tries my best to clear out the noise and focus on what's best for the situation at hand.
Got it. So my next question is, as a Muslim entrepreneur, how has your faith played a role in shaping how you approach business? Because not a lot of people actually, integrate their religion into their business to a degree. And it's interesting that you're in this space because, obviously it's, you're helping people complete half their deen to a degree.
Yeah.
Right? So in your way, how do you feel like you've played a role where Islam and business come together, or how does that show up in your line of work, you could say?
That's a very interesting way of asking that question.
I know.
Definitely makes you think about it. I think, first of all, when it comes to faith and being a Muslim, that's top priority, regardless of what stage of life I've been. I've been a devoted Muslim, and I try my best to be a good Muslim. That's one. I have my full faith in God first, then everything else in life. And I think when I took the leap from finance to event planning or being in the service side, it was all me and God. Like, I left everything to God and said, if you feel this is the best option for me, then 100%, I'm totally down. And I think that's how opportunities just came about without me searching for it. Like, it literally, the luxury event space found me. And I think it's definitely because God just wanted me to be in that path. In regards to how do I manage Islam and wedding planning in the same space, I'm true to my values, and there are certain aspects in event planning that tie really, really well with Islam, and then there's a few that does not. I think the ones that do are nikah ceremonies or any type of wedding ceremonies, regardless of what faith. Those aspects I enjoy so much more. I get more emotional. I'm very intentional about the design, the concept, and making sure everyone is very much aligned within the ceremonies that we're doing for the actual wedding ceremony, because I'm so close to my own faith. So nikah ceremonies or Hindu temple ceremonies or Christian ceremonies, I'm more intentional about it and very, very respectful of whichever space I go into. And that's because as a Muslim, that's the first thing we're taught, right? Yeah. But then on the other side, certain aspects like alcohol at weddings, that's a big one. I personally will have an open conversation with my clients and let them know we are moving forward. I'm going to be very transparent when it comes to alcohol. I would like you to take care of this aspect. And thus far, alhamdulillah, every client I've booked with has always said, oh, no worries, we understand, we respect, we actually are grateful that you even told us about this. We will take care of this aspect. And they do. And it just works out so well. And my clientele, over 50%, is definitely very heavy alcohol based at the actual events, but I don't have to touch it. I don't have to be close to it. I don't have to plan it. And my clients take care of that aspect.
So that decision, I'm guessing, was very intentional from your part.
Yes, absolutely, 100%, because the whole haram and halal situation. And again, I'm not the best Muslim, but I'm anywhere I can control it, then I absolutely will. And that's one of the ways.
And that's admirable in itself, because not a lot of people, like if some people are put in that position, they'd go like, you know what, it's an avenue for me to make some more money. But in some cases, some people value the money over the religion, and then some people value the religion over money, right? And it's admirable, because as a woman, I think that's amazing, because like even on the men's side of things, right? Like, for example, if men go into gas stations or things like that, I mean, totally haram from the entire concept and idea of it, right? Alcohol, gambling, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can, it's the whole laundry list of things.
Right.
So, but I think that's so admirable from your perspective.
To each their own.
Of course,
I mean,
of course.
I'm
It's
not
their
here
choice.
to judge anyone. Everyone has
Yeah.
their own choice and right. But I think for me personally, it was important to make sure I'm in a safe space and a halal space, because religion, it's superior in my life than anything else. And this was one of the challenges that I came across instantly when I got into the wedding space.
Were there any other challenges that you faced since?
I think that was the biggest.
That was the biggest one?
Yeah, I would say that's the biggest.
Got it.
Yeah.
I guess one of the questions that comes into my mind is, like, you mentioned that your friend was actually your very first client,
Right.
What's one of the worst scenarios you've ever had to deal with? I mean, like, where you were just like, I don't want to deal with this client at all. Like, could you give us a story of one of the worst and one of the best? Like, what were they like? What makes a good client? What makes a bad client in your industry?
Yeah, I will say that, alhamdulillah, I'm very blessed to have clients that have been really good to me. And I think that's because when we have our initial consultations, I'm very intentional with each consultation, and I like to do virtual meetings or in-person meetings if possible. So that way we can kind of like see where our vibe is, if we work well together, if our energies are at the same level. I think that's so important, because if I can easily communicate with you and feel that, you understand where I'm coming from, there's a mutual level of respect and trust, then it just makes that long-term relationship so much better. So I haven't had bad clients or negative situations with my clients directly. Alhamdulillah, I've been blessed with really good clients, and we're still friends with a lot of them. I stay in touch afterwards. I know when they have their first baby, when they're making huge milestone changes or whatnot. But I can tell you scenarios that may have happened at weddings. The best one, let's see, there's so many, that one's hard. I think I get excited when clients come in and say, all right, here's our budget, here's our vision. We want you to get really creative with what you think would be great. And at that point, I get an opportunity to study my clients, see what their likes, dislikes are, and based on a little bit of a vision that they've given me from their weddings, what else can I do to elevate that and do something extraordinary for them? So that's the best style of clients. When it comes to the other side, something challenging.
I mean, have you ever had to reject a client?
In consultations, I'll ask different questions or specific questions to see where their mindset is. And if I feel like, okay, this might not align with what my vision is, or what my brand stands for, then maybe I'll steer away from it and respectfully decline the opportunity. When I'm doing consultations, I'm very much intentional to know my clients first before we even talk about numbers, because I want to be able to have a long-term relationship with this couple. It's not just this one wedding. It's not about having 30 different weddings a year for me. It's about having 3 weddings that are going to be extraordinary. And I think, yes, in consultations, I will gauge that, but not directly say no.
Of course, of course. I mean, there are nice ways to say no,
Yes,
obviously.
absolutely.
I don't think it makes
absolutely.
sense for, I mean, corporate speak obviously can
Yep.
help in that respect.
Very political.
Right. Let's see. So this brings me to an interesting question, I guess you could say. Walk me through the process of what from consultation, where do people go next? And then what happens after that and after that and after that? I mean, just walk us through that whole life cycle. What does that look like?
Yeah, life cycle of a wedding planner and their clients. Once we have a consultation, we go into contracting, and I have a really in-depth conversation with the couple and their families as well, because it's the couple, their families, especially in our community, are heavily involved in wedding aspects. And I'm totally okay with that, because I'm a family-oriented person. So when it comes to my couples, I want to make sure that their families are really excited about that. And in this conversation, we talk about their overall vision and what they're most looking forward to, just so I get an opportunity to learn the couple and their families. And after that, I come in with a vision board of what to potentially expect based on what I've learned from them, about them too. And once we have that vision board, we kind of let our clients decide what they like, if there's anything that they don't like. And almost every time my couples are like, yes, this is the theme we want to go with. You understood us so well. And when you hear that from your clients, you feel so good. It's like a boost of energy, and you continuously want to do more and get even more creative, bring out more designs. When my clients are excited, then I feed off of that.
Of
So that's a huge process, or a huge step in the process. And then we go into detailing out the wedding, the venue, or whatever other aspects that they appreciate the most.
Got it. What advice would you give to Muslim women entrepreneurs who want to enter this kind of industry, but they feel hesitation due to societal pressures or their environment, etc.? Like, what kind of advice would you give to them?
I would say, do what your heart tells you. Literally, like, listen to yourself. As hard as it is, just turn off the noise and listen to yourself, your true intentions, and God will lead you the way. It's really hard, it's tough, it's stressful to want to get out of the cookie cutter normal lifestyle for a Muslim female, but when you do, there's a sense of satisfaction, and you feel accomplished just making that decision on its own. And it could be anything. It doesn't have to be business. It could be, you're wanting to become an artist now, or start a school, or anything, any profession, or decide to stay at home and take care of your kids. That's you and your choice. And if it makes you happy, do it. Like, no one can stop you. So anything that you are most passionate about, be very intentional about it, and listen to your own heart about it.
Has this business been incredibly stressful to run at all? Or has it been, I mean, I'm pretty sure there are ups and downs for sure, because every business that I've been,
Absolutely.
there's what I call an entrepreneur's life cycle. It's like ignorant bliss, and then it's like, oh, it's working, and then it's not working, and then it's like, it's finally there, and it's like, and then you just keep repeating the cycle over and over again. In your case, has this business been stressful? Have you found, or has stress found you? I mean, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said earlier, any business, any task you take is going to be stressful. It's the approach you take to alleviate that stress. I think there have been numerous challenges along the way. And you learn from each challenge to ensure that maybe it doesn't happen the next time, or, you know, you have less of it in the future. Yeah, there have been challenges. But if you are really focused on your goals, then you'll find a way to move past those challenges and navigate through it. And it's a lot of it is trial, right? You try something, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, maybe do it a different way the next time, so you're not constantly stressed about it. And I think for me, when I was in corporate, I was working long hours. I did not get any sleep. And I also complained about it to my mom, to my husband, to my siblings, to my friends. In this side now, in weddings, I would say it's as stressful.
But you enjoy it.
But I enjoy it so much more. I don't mind working 100 hours. I will work 3 a.m. I'll get things done. If I get creative at that moment and I start to like sketch different things, then I will do it. Like, I don't mind, just because I love being in the space.
So would you say that passion ultimately drives you because you found that creative muscle?
100%, 100%. How many times are we in conversations where it's like, oh, my mom wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or this or that, so I did. But am I happy? I'm stressed out. I'm constantly working. I don't have time for my kids or the nannies or taking care of my kids, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it's lucrative, but they're not super happy. Here, I would first say I'm happy with the career path I've decided to take, and then two, it works with my lifestyle. So yes, passion definitely has to be there.
So AI was never a topic of conversation about maybe 3-4 years ago, right? And you've been running this business for, I believe, for about 5 years now at this point. Correct?
7 years now.
7 years.
Yeah.
Wow. So how has AI impacted your business? Has it made things easier? Have you leveraged it in certain spots inside of the business where it can make things a lot easier, where you don't need to hire out so many people for certain components of the business? Maybe you can talk or speak about that little tiny component.
Yeah, absolutely. AI is great, but then it has its moments too. Our industry is so heavily like hands-on.
It's so customized.
It's
right?
very customized. You can't have AI come in and do it on its own. Maybe AI has helped us create like 3D visionaries of what we are trying to explain to our clients. That's one way I would say it has helped. But other than that, I personally don't use AI for the wedding aspect. I'm sure there's ways
for
of
the
like
planning components at least.
the planning components. No, like yeah, maybe you can, but I don't use it.
Okay.
So I really can't talk too much about it.
That's fair. I mean, just out of curiosity, well, not curiosity, but maybe my 2 cents. You can take it, you can leave it. I don't care what you do with it. But like one of the things that I tend to do, especially in like client consultations that I initially have, since I tend to do them over Zoom, what we do is we take the audio transcript and then, hey, what are the clear call to actions here, right? Oh, they wanted this, this, and this. And then from there, I have certain models that I've created in AI systems where it's like, oh, I want to take this piece of information, put it here, and then templatize it. I've created this template that I then now leverage, then that can streamline my business processes. And then from there, it shortens the amount of time I have to spend on working.
Right.
So in a way, it makes it even more enjoyable to a degree because it's like these minor little changes which lead to outsized returns. And that's what we've noticed with the pod, at least, because right now it's just a one-person team.
Right.
And it's leveraging AI out the wazoo in a way. Because like whether it's thumbnail creation or thumbnail ideation or writing a description or redoing marketing copy in the form of, let's say, one of the big marketing agencies like Ogilvy or maybe WPP, etc. So in that way, when we communicate a message, it's like, oh, if somebody were to identify with this message, this is how they would, there's certain like products out there, like for example, let's say orange juice, or Nike as an example, right?
Yeah.
Just do it, right? People identify with that brand as a championship brand, right? So it's in those ways we've leveraged AI, at least in this business. And I was just curious if you leverage it at all. Maybe this might be the impetus for you to try some other stuff.
Maybe
Right?
personally, I'm just not as tech savvy, nor do I really have the desire to get into AI. I'm sure it has great things. I'm sure there's tools that I can utilize in the planning process. I think because I didn't really need to rely on it thus far, I feel like I don't have to rely on it. But if there are aspects that'll help production a little bit more, I'm totally open for it.
Do you think in the future, I mean, because there will be a future where AI is even more prevalent than what it is today,
Yes, that is
right?
true.
And what I've noticed that if people don't tend to adapt or adopt new ideas and concepts along the way, what happens is that some certain segment of businesses always get left behind.
Yeah.
And we can see that in the restaurant industry and
Yes.
multiple others. Do you think that would have a huge impact on your business in the future? And that's a question I want to pose to you.
That is something to think about for sure. Obviously, AI has influence in our space. I would say a lot of times it creates really pretty designs on AI. We've looked at samples on Instagram or TikTok, things that have popped up, and we're like, whoa, is this real? Like,
Yeah.
it's beautiful. So it's already involved itself in terms of design. Workflow, I'm sure there are certain aspects that AI is embedded in, whether I know about it or not. Personally, I haven't gone out to say, okay, let's look at AI and how I can utilize it.
And that's
So-
fine. I mean, that's amazing still, regardless. I mean, because you've achieved so much in 7 years that even I'm amazed.
Oh,
right?
you're so sweet.
I mean, that's the truth, though. That is genuinely the truth.
Thank you.
In business, right? I want to rewind a little bit, and that's more so along the lines of your customers. In most businesses, your customer acquisition is such a key component of the business in order for it to grow,
Right.
And in your case, your business is mainly organically grown through word of mouth, which is the most powerful method of actually acquiring customers, because you don't have to pay for advertising or anything else like that. But going forward, I think one of the questions I have for you is, do you ever believe that you would hit some form of capacity? And would you ever start advertising your business?
Yeah, great question. So, alhamdulillah, I've been blessed to have a clientele that organically grew. That's on its own truly is very humbling, because I did not expect that at all, being from a completely different field to come up here and for literally, like I said earlier, weddings found me. I didn't find weddings. It truly is that, and I'm so blessed for that, alhamdulillah. But at the same time, my clientele is slowly changing. There was a time where I would work with a couple's parents. They're heavily involved in weddings, and they also invested into their son or daughter's wedding. Then we slowly transitioned to working directly with couples who are planning their wedding, investing into their wedding. And that's who my point of contact was, which is fantastic. But recently, I have slowly been a little bit more active online, on TikTok, on Instagram, socials, specifically socials, because I have clients who are now 21, 22 years old, and the first question they ask is, oh, what's your tag? Like, how do your socials look? And that's a question I never got in the past. So maybe now I'm getting into that space where I'm trying to make my page look really good to satisfy the need of
Well, you're trying to build
Gen
social
Z.
proof, basically.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
It's your social proof, because I think a lot of people, hey, I want to look at Ria Events and Design. Like, what did you do, right? Because I'm going to hire you. I want to see pictures. I
Yeah.
want to see videos without ever having to ask you, right? And I think that's what we see with the newer generation. not so much the older.
Yeah.
Which is strange because like you would think that they would also want to see those things, but because they typically go through references and things like that, it's like that's how they find you. But now the
Yes.
newer generation is like, hey, do you exist online?
Right.
If you don't, I'm not
How
talking to
many
you.
followers do you have?
Exactly.
And it's their parents are the ones referring them to me. But once we are talking, I think it's important for them to actually have visuals. And it's not just about pictures. They want to see something that's really fast paced, and reels are the way to go.
Yeah.
They don't want to go through albums or go online and look at different weddings that you've done. They want like a 30-second glimpse of everything that you can do.
ASAP.
ASAP, instant. So that's kind of been a challenge because there's so many different components to what we do that you can't really put it into 30 seconds. But you try your best with reels and just, giving as much knowledge as you can and educating our clients.
Actually, that brings up an interesting question. Like,
Sure.
how do you educate your client? I mean, because that piece I don't understand, and I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a client comes in, and obviously it's like their first wedding in the household or the second, and the first one may have been 10, 15 years, there's so much that has changed in the wedding space that I really have to understand where they stand currently in terms of their thought process of how much of an investment is weddings, or how much time does it take, or can I truly have 600 people at my wedding? That's something that I get often in terms of guest count. Clients come in with a insanely large guest count, but then towards the midpoint of the planning process, that number slowly changes because they're now seeing where their investment is going and how it's allocated to each guest. And that process takes some time to explain to them because their mind is at a certain space, or sometimes they just don't have an idea. So we just talk through every step of the way, one by one, so they're not overwhelmed, because weddings can be challenging. It is a lot of information at once.
Is it because people are thinking maybe from an emotional standpoint versus a logical standpoint, and then those crisscross so much that like, I don't get it. The one person gets it, another person doesn't.
Right.
Like, whereas you're interesting in that sense because like, you with the finance background, structure and logic makes so much sense.
100%.
But then you exercise the creative side where everything is in flux, right? And it's like you can crisscross between the two, which makes you unique in that sense. Because usually what I've noticed is a big cohort of women tend to be very, very creative, but they're not very, like, I would say business oriented, right? They don't learn finance, or they don't learn marketing, or they don't learn the pieces to make it actually work.
Right.
Whereas you've seen both ends of the spectrum, which makes it substantially easier for you to actually run your business. Now, I guess one of the next questions I want to take from here is, do you currently have any employees, or do you currently hire out components of your business so then that way you can deliver for the client?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So I do have employees on payroll, and they're the ones who would take on any events that maybe I'm not able to be part of, or a lot of times they will take care of like the smaller aspects in terms of like scheduling appointments or site visits, and that allows me to just focus on consultations or designing an event or whatnot. And then, yes, of course, day of the events, if I need to hire freelance day of coordinators, I can. But when you have a team, a really good, solid team already, then you don't even need to go that route. Yeah. So alhamdulillah, that definitely took time. It wasn't like that initially. I started off doing weddings from my garage by myself and asking Amar, my husband, to help at times, my sister to help. But then throughout the years, now I can like happily say I'm in a space where I have a team who can successfully deliver a wedding for me and my
Just out of
clients.
curiosity, how do you manage your household plus run the business? Because like that in itself sounds chaotic. I know that in my life it's been, I have to focus on this one thing, and then slowly build up a muscle over time where I can control and manage these things. And entrepreneurs tend to be very control freakish sometimes. And I don't just give us a flavor of what that would be like. Like, how do you manage everything?
It is a lot. I can't say that it's easy, or you have to be focused, you have to do this, you do that, but like, you kind of go day by day. I have a plan, I have a structure of what I would like to do for the week in terms of what I need to accomplish for Ria Events, what I need to do for Amar and I, and try my best to obtain all of those aspects, but be lenient with myself in regards to, like, say, if I could not do all 20 tasks today, then it's okay for it to go on to the next day.
So you're forgiving for yourself in a way.
You kind of have to be at times, depending on the situation. Yeah.
So give us an example. What would that look like? Like, give me a good example of what that looks like for you.
Okay, so I think I'm more forgiving when it's something for myself. If it's for Amar or my family members, I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Ria Events, Amar, family, kind of in the same level. So I definitely like work on that. When it comes to myself, I will just kind of like put my shopping, going out to have like a self-care day or something on the back seat, just to make sure that everything else that's more important gets taken care of. And there are sacrifices. Any business owner would make many sacrifices.
Has that neglect, not to say that it is neglect, but has that neglect ever materialized in burnout?
Used to, when I did not have help. The first year, the second year, 100%. But now I am at a more comfortable space where I can easily manage what I want to do for Ria Events, family, and then personally as well. So it took time. It took 7 years to get to that point, Daniel. Definitely not overnight, but now I feel a lot more comfortable with it.
Got it. So as Ria Events in design continues to grow, what's next for you? Do you see yourself expanding beyond Atlanta? Are you already expanded beyond Atlanta? Are you looking into offering new types of events or offering additional services?
Great question. So absolutely, we are growing. We're not just in Atlanta any longer. We're in California, we're in New York. We're doing events all over the state, as well as countries, Mexico, Canada. So that's been a journey on its own, especially this year and next year. We have so many projects coming up that's outside of the US, and I think that is growth. That is the next level, and then you work that and see where it takes you for the next few years. So fun projects coming up, and I think in terms of where Ria Events can go internationally, we're there now. But making it even a larger scale is goals for the future, and I'm excited to
What's the end goal look like? Does it look like, you're hitting 7, 8 figures, 9 figures? What does the end goal look like, if you have an end goal? You don't have to have one, but like maybe you have a vision of where this can go. Do you plan on selling it in the future? I mean, because that could be an interesting play too, right? How do you sell an events business? I mean, like, it's an idea in my mind. It's private equity speak, basically. But like, it's just interesting to ask you that question because I'm curious.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Definitely not planning on selling Ria Events because it is my baby, and I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I can. We don't know what life holds for us, but we were talking about religion earlier, and I think bringing that back to this question, in our religion, you keep certain goals to yourself, and it's between you and God. And when it comes to the future of Ria Events, I'm very, again, intentional about that, and I talk to God about it and kind of have Him guide me to what next steps should be. And I think in this case, you'll find out when it comes out.
Okay, that's fair. That's a fair answer. If you could go back in time and give advice to a younger version of yourself when you first started this journey, what would you say?
Don't underestimate yourself. I think we are in a community where sometimes we're very like, oh no, this is the way you should, you know, move in life. And you take that, and whether you're happy about it or you're not, you do it because everyone else is happy. But that holds you back. I think I did investments because I felt like I would make everyone else happy. Like, you know, my parents would be proud of me if I was in this space. And the thing that I did not know is if I was happy with myself and what I'm doing, then obviously it's noticeable. And with that, my parents would have been happier with me. And right now, my mom is ecstatic that I'm a planner, and she talks about it all the time. And
she becomes your biggest advocate in a way.
She is my biggest advocate. And she's one of the reasons why I went into this space too. And I saw her as I grew up, like doing events. So she's the first person who did it. So 100%, I think that I doubted myself, and I went into a space where I felt like I needed to do things for everyone else. But if I had that confidence when I was younger, then I could have started this much earlier and been very much happier in that space instead of having to make that switch. But at the same time, going through that experience has taught me so much that I can actually utilize it in this space as well. So, you know, everything happens for a reason in life. And I am grateful for the path that I've taken.
It's amazing. Your job or your business basically involves creating, you know, moments that people cherish for the rest of their lives. What does that responsibility mean to you on a personal level?
Gosh.
I know it's a tough question, but give it your best shot.
Honestly, I am very, very, how do I say this? When I have my clients, I want to make sure that every step we take, every decision we make is something that I would want for myself. If I'm in their shoes and I'm getting married in the next year, what aspects would I want for myself? And that's what I would give to them. And it's not that like I see myself in every couple, but it's more that I would want to do right to them as I would to myself. And that's been my approach from the start. And even in my consultations, if we connect, then we're connecting throughout the process. And I'm able to ensure that they're satisfied and I deliver the best because I want the best for them, just like I would for myself.
Okay, mashallah. So sometimes, you know, business is such a simple thing, right? It's just a simple series of tasks that need to be done over and over and over again. And people think that sometimes they need to have a little tiny secret or something to finally do that one thing. They need to have the perfect moment in time, which never comes. And perfect conditions, which again, never come. So one of the things I wanted to ask you was, what advice would you give to someone who is passionate about starting an event planning business but is afraid to take the leap?
I would say you have to be true to yourself. If you are too comfortable in a space, then it's not long term. If something makes you nervous and excited at the same time, then that on its own is your gut telling you to maybe take the next step and where it takes you. So instead of just saying, no, I can't do this, or this is too scary, maybe take like half a step closer and see how that goes. And if it goes well and, you know, you feel like, okay, this is good, take another half step. And just instead of downing things, just think
Just
more
try.
of on a
Yeah,
try
just
it.
try.
Just think positive. And a lot of times when you put out positivity in the universe, it comes back to you 10 times fold.
I
So
agree 100%.
I'm definitely for that 100%.
So, where can people find you on your socials?
Yeah, absolutely. Ria Events and Design on TikTok, Instagram, our website, www.riaeventsanddesign.com. I feel like no one actually says that anymore, right?
I mean, you know, plenty of people do. I mean, it's on depending on the ads, of course.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, I don't do ads that much, so I guess that's
Hey,
why I
we
never
can.
say.
I'm happy to give advice on ads if needed. So.
Okay, we're gonna have to have another separate conversation. But yeah, Ria Events and Design, we are here, and we'd love to get to know you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much again. You've been such an inspiration for not
you.
just myself, but for so many others. And hopefully this can be the avenue in which they can learn more about you and how if they ever want to start an events business, they can reach out to you probably and you can give them advice and hopefully coach them if you want them.
Absolutely, 100%. I'm always here to help. Thank you guys so much for being here. You've been amazing.
Thank you so much.
And being the first Muslim female on this podcast. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. Thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it.
You are absolutely welcome. And again, thank you so much for being the first female guest.
Absolutely. Thank you.